welcome to the show Doug Horner, General Sales Manager, Mercedes-Benz of North Olmsted, also known as Benzs Bowties. Doug, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, guys. Happy to be here.
Doug, welcome. I appreciate you coming on. So, we got to ask the first thing before we get into last week's. How's biz?
Business has been very good. May was hugely busy for us, and June's off to a good start. So we're living in an interesting world now where it's hard for me to necessarily know if we're in line with where everybody else in the market is, or if we're doing better as a result of social media presence. I mean, a lot of the times, we've always been a high volume store, but it's hard to deny the increased traffic to the store that the social media has created. So there's just not a lot of years. We don't have years to measure it against. That's the problem.
Well, you will. More time, more data. So to address last week's, and again, I appreciate you coming on. I softened it tremendously by saying you seem like a great guy. You make great content. It was your specific example with Toyota, and I think maybe now we have a few more minutes where we can put a little more color on it. I agree with you, by the way, and I told you this when we spoke, that it's not always the best deal when you look at it from an affordability standpoint. To me, it was just, I've never seen a new Toyota, especially like a 4Runner, that would be in line with or a better deal than a used car. But when we look at other brands, I mean, myself personally, I did this with my brother last year at a Nissan store. Where else can you drive a $55,000 car for less than $300 a month? I mean, you lease a new EV, right? So
100%. Yeah, it's such an interesting topic because, the Toyota example is an easy one for people to wrap their head around because that brand is just on fire right now. They're doing so well. But there are just so many examples. I've become very fascinated with the decision-making process that goes on in the mind of a car buyer. And I've learned over the years that people, whether it was the way they were brought up or just kind of what they've read or the people they've been around, is they generally, you've got people that are like, I only buy new, I only buy used, or I only pay cash or finance, I only lease. And people generally are not willing to kind of go back and forth on that issue. You've got some that will, but oftentimes I will see people who buy used cars, and with Toyota specifically, I'm sitting there like, I don't think they realize how much they're paying for this car based on what I'm appraising comparable, or 3, 4, 5-year-old Toyota trades at. And the only reason I know that they can't know is because if you did take the time to shop for a new one, you'd quickly realize, oh, wow, this doesn't make sense. But the only explanation can be, if you're not considering both options and you're only locked in on one, then you can't know there's a better alternative out there.
Right. And we know that part of your claim to fame is your transparency on social media. And I think that's why you've been so successful. And you've grown a lot of people in your team, from what I've seen, to be successful on social media. But before we get into that, we're seeing Bank of America Car Wars reports suggest a pivot back to ICE and hybrid. Now, Mercedes a few years back overextended themselves, I'll say, with the EQS. We just heard about the G-Wagon EV not selling, which is crazy to me. How are you guys dealing with this?
With the G-Wagon specifically, or just kind of with the direction
with the
of
shifts in
Mercedes-Benz?
market?
It's been very challenging. I've told everybody that asks over the last several years, I've gotten out of the prediction game trying to figure out where not only the whole industry is going, but where Mercedes is going. Because just a few short years ago, they were, they had that 2030 plan, like so many manufacturers did, which was by 2030, we're going to be 100% electric. And as it was explained to me, we have conversations with the brand, and, they've explained it in a way that I respect, which is, the decisions that are made in automotive trail by several years. So the things that you see come to light today were decided on a long, long time ago. And as they put it, we chose a direction that made sense at the time. And then as you get closer to that and things start to unfold, you realize, okay, you know what, this is not going the way that we thought it was. And now you've got to do kind of a 180 of sorts. So they've pulled back on production, which I think is good, because now we've got a reasonable number of EVs. But the G-Wagon has definitely been, it hurts my heart to see them struggling, especially when the people who have bought them really love them.
I'd heard you said that you have a customer that it's his favorite car, right? I mean, I loved my G-Wagon, and I mean that motor and the way that it sounds with the side exit exhaust. I mean, there's nothing like that driving around.
No.
But is that a testament to just how anti-EV certain people can be if the G-Wagon of all things is sitting idle. Are you guys having that same experience on the lot?
Yeah, we've sold a good number of them, but we took on extra allocations that other dealers didn't want because they, were having trouble, and now some of them have, started to kind of pile up a little bit, at least more than we're used to seeing. And so yeah, it's just, I think that you really are reaching that point where if you look at every other EV in the marketplace, they are sold on the back of huge, huge, huge incentives and lease payments that just are, I think, frankly, ridiculous for, $130,000 cars that you're leasing for under $1,000 a month with no money out of pocket. That
Sure.
At that point, who wouldn't consider it, right?
Right.
But with the G-Wagon, it's still a G-Wagon that doesn't have incentives outside of that $7,500 lease cash, and it is a wildly expensive truck. So yeah, it's no matter, it's going to be expensive without thousands and thousands of dollars of help.
Now, what are you guys doing to get into the social media side? We have a poll that we did recently, and hopefully they can pull up the graphic while we're talking about this. The CDG community was telling us basically that still at this point, 46% of people are saying that social media is absolutely essential, which means that 54% it's either not important or not on their radar. So it was 32% said it was helpful, but not a game changer. And 22% said not on my radar at all. I think you are a testament to it is wildly successful. Do you have that tied into pay plans? And what are you doing to cultivate that atmosphere under your rooftop?
Yeah, so we haven't gone that far, and I think that it's it's a delicate balance, right? Because there's always the fear that people might take it too far, it might become consuming, but I think it's hard to deny how impactful it is. And I think most people that are either, I don't want to say in denial, but people that say that it's helpful but not a game changer or not on my radar at all, I think a lot of these people do understand that there is value there, but they might think, it's just, is it really worth the work, or am I going to get the results that other people have gotten? I'm here to tell you that, we all are consuming social media all day long, every day. That's just, some more than others, of course, but that's how people spend their time now, their free time. And so I don't remember who said it, but I heard somebody say, look, if everyone is doing this all day long, then that's where we need to be.
Sure.
Right? Because if we're not there, then they're not going to know about us. That's just the reality of it.
And I think the approach that you took is the approach to take with social media. I think I'm going to venture a guess that those people that say it's not on the radar, it's not important, are thinking in social media of the terms of, hey, post a video of that car out front and ask someone to come in and buy it. That's a waste of energy, right? I mean, what you're doing is highbrow, it's transparent, it's building trust with the local community and outside of the local community. How are you fostering that with your salespeople? Because I believe you have a couple people under you that have adopted it in the same way you have.
Yeah, we've had a few that really took it seriously. Some that tried it and maybe didn't follow through on it entirely. I mean, because it is a lot of work to do it, I think, in the organic and truly best way, which is, yeah, you're filming your life, so to speak. You're showing people what you're doing, what goes on behind the scenes, answering questions, and it works. And so we encourage it. We don't require it. I'm sure that because I do it, it's become such a part of my routine that the rest of the team probably feels like they don't have to do it now because the phone rings all day long and says, hey, and what I love is that they kind of attribute it to the store. They're like, hey, I watch your guys' videos online, right? They're generally referring to the videos that I'm making, but I do it because I know that it's going to bring people here. So I think the sales team is very much enjoying the fruits of my labor. But obviously, they're the ones that are on the front lines and helping me to put deals together for these people that are calling in.
So, Doug, as your presence has become bigger and your reach has expanded, and you've become more well known in this space, do you have any stories of, like, I think most car dealers are super anxious when they hear about this. They're like, hey, what if he says something wrong? What if he makes an offer that's not in line with all the different advertising laws or the OEM rules, or he makes someone, like, do you have any crazy story of something that was said amiss and how you had to go fix it later as you've expanded your reach?
It's happened just a couple times. I mean, my favorite example, the most famous example, was last year, Mercedes-Benz mistakenly started advertising that the C63 was going to get the $7,500 lease cash.
Yeah.
And it came out in the program guide. It was on MBUSA.com. And so overnight, they had introduced kind of a little bit of an incentive plus this lease cash. And so I do this video that I'm like, hey, look, C63 leases just got like $300 a month better overnight. And this was based on what was online, right?
Yeah.
And as it turns out, the story as it was relayed to me was somebody at Mercedes-Benz Financial called MBUSA and was like, hey, there's been like a 5,000% increase on applications on C63s in the last 24 hours. Like, what's going on?
It's Doug.
And so, yeah, right. They looked at the program guide and they realized that it had been a mistake because the C63's battery wasn't actually big enough to qualify it for that federal tax credit. So they were unable to offer that incentive on that car. So they very quickly got it. I think it was like within 2 days, it was taken down. The program guide was updated, but they're literally calling me and we're like, hey, so this was a mistake, right? Like this is Mercedes is calling to say, we got to do something here because we didn't mean to do that. And it's like, all right, well, it's on your website. So let's find a way to kind of damage control this a little bit.
Did they stand behind it at the end or was it just, hey, it was a mistake, everybody walk away?
Yeah. So within anybody that had submitted an application for approval within that like 3 or 4 day window of time where it was live, they honored it.
Wow.
So, but yeah, it was it just was because I'm getting calls. They're like, hey, you got to take that video down. And I'm like, what video? And they're like, well, you're talking, we made a mistake. And so we found a way to just say, hey, you know what? Here's why it doesn't qualify. And they did the right thing. They honored it for a period of time. But it was pretty bizarre to have the manufacturer calling and saying, hey, you uncovered a grave mistake on the program guide.
It's a dual-edged sword, really, because it shows your reach and the power that you have within the media sphere, but it also it puts their message out that much faster. Have you ever personally made a mistake? That was an OEM issue before you go to our next comment. That you've had to walk back, because I think that as a salesperson or a manager, that would scare me. The idea that I'd put something out there that I might make a mistake on, and how do you walk that back?
Yeah, for sure. There was a video once where I talked about an incentive that wasn't public knowledge. You know what I mean? It was really just it was kind of a specialized incentive that only the dealers would have access to. And so it very quickly was brought to my attention, and I got the videos taken down and apologized to a few people. I mean, I'm not going to pretend like there haven't been a couple of snags along the way, but I've learned at this point that obviously there's a few things that are kind of confidential to you as a dealer of a certain brand, or things that shouldn't be talked about. But I also think that I'd like to think anyway that I've got some situational awareness, and you need that if you're going to do this to know what can you talk about, what can't you talk about. I purposefully leave people's personal information out of my videos. I'll talk about the situations themselves, but I'm not naming them or talking about them specifically.
Props to you and the dealer you work with to have the confidence to do what you're doing, to create this transparent environment where you're able to lean into this. I think it reflects well across all of automotive. It helps people from outside that don't know our industry to see the inside better. And everything anyone does that can better put a better face on our industry and make it more transparent for all the good that goes on is awesome. And you've done that. Who owns the dealer group that you work with, by the way, Doug? Because they've got to be understanding as well, right?
Yeah, it's the Raffi Auto Group, and Terry Raffi is the president and CEO. So they're based out of Windsor, Canada, but they've got some stores in Michigan, a couple here in Ohio. But they're mostly a Canadian group. But yeah, they've been really wonderful about it because, in fairness to them and to my boss, I just kind of started doing it. I didn't really give anyone a heads up, and I didn't.
That's the best way, by the way.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Ask for forgiveness, not permission, right? But it just sort of took off out of nowhere. So I think when the phones started ringing and people started showing up to the dealership and doing a double take as they walked past my office, and then they're like, "Oh, I didn't realize that you were here," right? And they come walking in.
So you've never gotten a phone call from Canada where it's like, "What the blank are you doing this?" Right? So that hasn't happened yet.
No, they've been really supportive, and obviously we've just gone over, hey, let's make sure that we always keep everything in the best interest of the manufacturer and the dealership, and of course, like we're all on the same team.
Well, Doug Horner, an incredible conversation today. We'd love to have you back near in the future here. Doug Horner, General Sales Manager, Mercedes-Benz North Olmsted, also famous from Benzs Bowties. Appreciate you being on the show, sharing your perspective and your authentic and vulnerable stories. Thanks, Doug.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Doug.